Good afternoon, guys. Michael and Israel here again for Tech Tuesday.
We're back.
We missed last week because you dared to go have fun.
Yes.
Went
Fishing.
but not out of a kayak this time.
Out
Out of a skeeter.
Skeeter, yes. Center console out in the goo.
The goo.
Yeah.
A little red fishing.
A little red fishing, even though we didn't catch many reds. We caught a lot of speckled trout. We caught a lot of sheephead and a lot of black drum. Of course, we just threw the black drum back.
All right. Well,
Sheephead were fun to catch. And then Angela caught a 33-inch red, and I caught a 31.5-inch red.
well, and so that was just to brag on Bucks a bit. That was a skeeter event that we got invited down. Y'all ended up going for top 10
yeah,
dealerships in the nation. So if any of you guys follow some of the other skeeter pros, it sounds like most of them were down there. They were shooting content and stuff as well. So sounds like they were doing more work than you guys for a change.
Yes.
So
They were making us sandwiches and making us breakfast. So,
well,
but we had the place that hosted us was called Cajun Adventures, and the guy there is really awesome, and he's got a top-notch facility, and so if anybody's ever looking to do that kind of thing, I'd hit him up because he does a good job. So, and he does a lot of corporate events.
Cool.
Too, so.
Well, Timmy Taylor, it is good to see you. I guess we'll jump right into a question from you. I do have a couple of things that I pulled. But, guys, if you're watching, we want to answer your questions. So please drop them in the comments and make sure if you're watching it like in a shared post or something like that, that you're jumping into our actual, our live feed on our page so that we can actually see the comment. That's how it shows up. So technology is awesome. It's great to be able to go live to Facebook and to YouTube all at the same time, but there are some caveats to that. So, all right. Well, let's start with Tim Taylor while everybody's typing in other stuff right now.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Is there any routine maintenance for the Skeeter trailers or vault hubs?
I would say, and don't quote me on any of these numbers because I haven't really looked the vault side up. I know a lot of the oil bath hubs are usually rated for around 40,000 miles. But I think the most important thing is to check them for any kind of leaks, brake dust. Some people are going to brake harder than others and use their trailers more than others. If you don't travel a lot, then there's not a lot of maintenance other than inspection, and then part of our 100-hour service is not really based off trailer stuff. So I always try to encourage people to, unless you mention it, they don't really look at certain things. So I would have during normal inspections of your engine and stuff, just put on your service ticket when you get it written up, just to get them to look over. I always checked them when I did any service. I walk around and I see if there's any oil dripping. And a lot of guys here are real good about doing that, but in other places they're not necessarily going to even touch that because that's not part of a service. But I like to do a walk around and see if I see anything, like if the brake, the emergency brake thing's been jerked off. If I see any leaks around any of the hubs, and most of the time people look at the front of the hub, you got to look behind behind the spokes of the wheel and look behind there. That's where you're usually going to get a leak that's going to be detrimental, not necessarily in the front. So that's typically the routine maintenance is inspection. And then, of course, on the tongue side of things, sometimes you can put some penetrating oil in there or some light grease. There's no grease fitting, so you can't really grease it. But it's good to where those bolts are. Or actually, it's not bolts on yours, Tim. It's going to be like pins. You can spray penetrating oil in there, and it'll just keep it from rusting and getting stuck in there. So if you do have to take it apart, it makes it a lot easier for us to do something with it. And there's a place for you to check fluid. So On the very front, there's like a weather cap. Most of the time on the Skeeter or anything else that's got any kind of tough coat on it, it's going to blow off. So, but underneath that is a little tab that you can pop open. Some trailers have a piece that unscrews, but most of them nowadays, right, they just pop off. You can pop it off and look at it, and you can see how much fluid is in that cylinder. If it's really low and you have no leaks, that means your brake pads are probably, halfway worn or something may need to be looked at. But otherwise, if it's really low, there's a spot in there that has like a little, there's like a hole there. If it gets to that hole, it's going to start sucking air. And you can put regular DOT3 in that. Just don't get it everywhere because brake fluid literally eats everything up. So if you get on your tough coat and it drips down underneath the tough coat, it's going to start taking it off. If you have it in a garage that has nice painted floors with that little speckly stuff on there, if it gets on the floor, it's coming off. I've learned brake fluid takes everything off. Takes your skin off.
Awesome.
It's really bad stuff. So be careful wearing gloves. It's toxic. But that'd be the other thing I would look at. And then I like to tell people to keep an eye. Let me get my hands. Eye on your wheels. If your wheels start kicking out like this a little bit more, like you have one that's more than the other, that could be a sign that you have bearings going out. Or sometimes the bearings will wear a little bit, and there'll be a little slack in it. And all we have to do in that case is tighten up the nut just like a little bit, and then loosen it back up a little bit, and it'll take that slack out. But those are things that we kind of keep an eye on. So we had a trade come in the other day that had some old bath. It was on a nitro, and you could tell, the cap had come off, and one of the guys would say, "Hey, you got a cap we can put on this?" And you're like, "Yeah," but we put the cap on there, and it's wallered out, and then one side of the nut was closer than the other side, so I was like, kick the tire, and the whole thing wobbled. So, so we spent the last, week trying to find parts because it's a nitro. They have their own proprietary stuff. So, but that's typically what you do. And then, other than that, then keep an eye on whether you have lights out and stuff.
So the only thing I'll throw out there, because I was actually thinking about this the other day, I was towing a big cargo trailer actually for the Southside band that's got the whole electric brake set up, and I got the diesel truck that's got the exhaust brake, and that thing I can basically come to a complete stop almost without ever touching my brakes. And I was thinking about that with towing a boat, and like, that's awesome that I can do that with a brake where, or a trailer where brakes are all integrated, an RV, that type of thing. But all these boat trailers, that exhaust brake, it's still using the brakes on the trailer just because it's all momentum based. So if you're a diesel guy with an exhaust brake where you never really touch the brakes to stop the truck, but you're towing you're still putting wear and tear on those brake pads.
Yes, you are.
It is kind of nice to not to be a little more gentle on the RV and that kind of stuff. But
we got us a spammer.
All right, we'll deal with that in a second. Another one.
Well, okay, I guess it depends on your definition of bigger. Ever heard that before? I would say mine was fatter and hers was a little longer. So.
All right. Well.
But if you're going by measurement, she had me by 1.5 inches.
What's that say that your wife's got you by 1.5 inches? So, all right. Any other tech questions, Timmy, or other good ribbings for Israel? I'll throw them up there. Okay. Let me pull up one of mine, and I'm going to jump over on YouTube for just a second. Sorry for some of y'all that are just watching on Facebook. You're not seeing the little spam bot, but okay. Looking to buy a boat with twin 300s, 2016 with 700 horsepower. Or I'm sorry, 700 hours. Sorry, brain freeze. They look great. Run great throughout the RPM range, so no point to do compression tests. Any other inspection recommendations? So obviously this is, a market that we don't tend to see much of with the twin 300s, probably on a big center console. That was not really why I picked the question, but for that face that you just made, because it's if they're all Yamahas, I mean it's
Well,
a Yamaha 300
I'm
and Yamaha
yeah,
300.
I'm
So
a big proponent of doing a compression test anyway. I don't, especially with 700 hours, because you can, if you've got an engine that's running throughout the RPM range just fine, and it's got, a broken ring or a broken top. I had a guy had his ran fine. He actually was trading the boat, and he had just ran it, and it ran 70 miles an hour, and it was a 250, and you would have thought nothing was wrong. But when did a compression test, one cylinder had 100 pounds, and the rest of them had 120. And I put my little bore scope in there with a camera and saw that it was half an inch of the top of the piston was just broken off and gone. And so I always would, anytime you're buying a used product, I tell people to take it to the river and then get somebody to do a trade check on it. You can pay a local shop $130 to do a compression and just overall look at the motor, look at the trim, look at the lower unit, and save yourself a lot of trouble. I had a guy had twins come down here, and I had another guy that was wanting to buy it, and he was the owner and was going to get us to do a trade check on it for this guy, just to make the guy feel better. And one half of one of the cylinders, all the spark plugs were stuck in it, and we weren't going to take them out. And so at least the guy knew when he was buying it, hey, you're going to have to figure out, what you got to do about these if you still want to buy this boat. And so he still bought it, but at least he knew, it was good for him.
well, along the same lines, I saw another one in there that obviously now is kind of a time where there's definitely some folks that are getting out looking for good deals, particularly on the used stuff. So we're going to offer any help that we can. But so this guy's looking at 2012 F250 XCA with 350 hours. Anything I should be looking for besides the norm? Could be going from mechanical to DEC controls. Any general thoughts on? So we obviously just cover the compression check.
Yeah. So he's buying a 2012 250 that somebody else is it DEC? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, could be going from mechanical to DEC controls. I don't know if that means that necessarily he's looking to buy it and then change the controls, or
well, he can't. I mean, it's either mechanical or it's DEC. You can't add it. So
all right, well, there's one answer.
If it's I don't know if an XCA is a DEC motor, but I mean, like anything else, you just do your due diligence. Go run the boat. Go run the motor, and check the compression. Check the lower unit for water, or metal. A lot of times we get them here and, open the thing up. It just blows stuff out everywhere. And it's like, oh, well, here's your problem. They don't even know it's there. Trim's leaking, steering's leaking, all this stuff when they're trading the boat in. So, anytime somebody's selling something or trading something in, I'm the skeptic. I've got to be. There's something wrong with it. So find it.
All right, guys. If you got any other questions, drop them in. We'll hit Mr. Taylor. He's going to do an install some LED deck lights on the Skeeter. Anything I should know about the wiring chases on the hull?
I'm assuming you're talking about the conduit where the wires run. Some of this is not going to have any conduit at all, So you're going to be running. The hard side is going to be the passenger side because there's not really much there except trolling motor wiring. So that's going to be your hardest part. So I'm not sure where you're going, which part of the deck you're going to do. If you're going to do, 4 on each side all the way down. There's a lot to tie into on the right side, but not much on the left side. If you're going to run it all independently and then daisy chain it, I don't know how you're going to do it. So the best advice I can give you is I wouldn't use the stuff you get at Lowe's, that metal thing you pull out that you run wires with.
Fish tape, you're talking
The
about?
fish tape stuff. It's
Okay.
really hard on your boat when you're trying to manipulate it.
See
And
that?
if it flops over, it's going to whack your boat. And so they make a fiberglass one that you can screw together, and I think they sell them at Lowe's too. If you don't have any other kind of like plastic, like I use old shift cables, cut the ends, and then I do the ends like with a rubber boot and tape them up so it doesn't poke the fiberglass.
Gotcha.
It seems to work really well. But a lot of the guys here, a lot of my riggers use the kind that screw together. You don't want a real thick one, super thick one. You want kind of like a thinner one. And it works pretty good. It's just you have to be patient. Skeeters can be hard to run stuff in. Sometimes like you can take the shifter, like that whole metal piece off, and lay it to the side and get in and out through there. Sometimes pull cup holders out of the way, because things get lost. Like you'll start running it in, and it'll start running under the gas tank. So coming from the front to the console may not be too hard, but it can be a challenge. It's not hard for me to do. I'm pretty good at it. But when people are, okay, let's see.
Are you doing like the strip LED strips,
Or the buttons.
or like the blue water
buttons?
That you only put 4 of them on the front deck or whatever. Because those strips they stick in, right?
They do, yeah.
So
just clean the surface if you're using those. The other ones just screw in. I imagine you're probably going to be using the strips. But you just be strategic, find a good place, because you have to probably drill holes, and if you ever take them back off, you got holes there, which we can always fix later if you want to get rid of the holes. But be strategic on where you put them. I put dedicated wiring in there for them, and then you'll fuse them. You'll run your switches wherever you're going to run your switches. You're probably going to use the little round switches. So it can be a bit of a task, and it can be overwhelming. Just take your time and map everything out on the deck first. Just get everything like you're running it through the boat, and just put it on the edge of the decks. Get it, you're going to be wrapping it around the back of the boat, or the front, whichever you decide to do. And then if you do that, then you have a good idea of how you're going to connect everything.
So what you're saying is
good luck.
Don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Good luck. Don't get stuck with your 6 inches short on line to actually get it into your circuit breakers.
Yeah. And you can hook the switch up wrong too, by the way. Like there's a ground and there's 2 wires. Okay, if you hook the wires up the wrong way, the light on the switch will stay on all the time. So all you gotta do is switch those 2 wires, and just give you a heads up, because I've run into that too.
So one light pet peeve of mine with some of that stuff is the white lights, which is fine. It works great if you're more than happy. But the thing I think about, and this is I guess the Navy guy in me, you will crush your night vision with a whole bunch of white light right in front of you.
Red is best.
Red is best, and green. Green actually works really well. Green's what you'll typically find if you're dealing with night vision devices, because you can still see, but it doesn't destroy your night vision.
And then get a dimmer. Buy one of the dimmers that you can buy with it, and that way you're not stuck with a bright light. Because if you get out there in the evening or early in the morning, you have those things cut on, you can't see anything. Even some of the red ones and the green ones, if it's too bright, you can't see. So I would suggest getting a dimmer to put in the circuit. That way you can bring the light way down.
Yeah,
and if you have your wife on there with you, y'all can have a nice drink.
It's been a pet peeve of mine. I get in a car at night and somebody's got their whole dashboard like as bright as it can be. I'm like, even in city, it's not as bad, but you get out on the interstate and I'm like, you can't see anything out of it. But again, that's just an old. That's an old Navy thing. That's why you see all the red lights on ships everywhere, so you don't destroy your night vision.
That's it. I learned that from telescopes.
Anytime you actually want to understand how to see stuff in the dark, you can get in the rods and cones of your eyeballs and all that kind of good stuff. Well, guys, any other? I've got one more. Might as well throw it up there. Tim, I appreciate you being faithful and getting. So this one is another 300.
This must be all saltwater guys.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of that in the Yamaha owners group, but this one's applicable. After my F300 sits for a few days, one of the trim rods does not slide down like the other one. Once I gas the boat a little, it drops, and it is good for the rest of the day. I have greased the ends well. Any ideas? You see anything like that?
So it doesn't slide. It does not side down like the other one. It's probably from not greasing it in the first place. So I think what a lot of saltwater guys do is so on a Yamaha, a lot of people don't know this, and the show people are probably not going to know it at all because they don't have one of those little flippy down things where you can hold your motor up. But even so, if you put your motor toter on and you just kept holding that trim button down, it'll pull those rods in. And they do that so that people in saltwater can pull those rods in so they don't get corroded. But if you pull it down, and one's going to always go down first, and then it might start pulling this one down. So if he's doing that and he's raising it back up and they're both being uneven, if the weight of the motor doesn't push the other one even, that usually means that if you don't grease the ends, it cocks those things and actually damages the side of the cylinder and the side and the piston itself, and it won't go down easy anymore. But if you grease it normally, which Tim, you should probably be greasing yours. I probably told you about that. But if you grease it normally, you won't ever have that problem. But if you grease it once a year, you'll eventually have that issue. So more than likely, that problem won't go away for him unless he cleans the tips of his rams and keeps them greased for a while, because I think Matt Herring actually had this problem not too long ago on his old boat that he just sold, I think. And I got a new trim ordered for him, but his was doing that, and I just greased the tips, and it started moving better. And by the time a couple of weeks had gone by and they'd used it a little bit, it wasn't sticking anymore, which means the edge of those rough spots had smoothened out, and it'll probably function for a while normally until it gets its new trim. But the Yamahas do need grease on the tip of those trims. Not too much, just enough to keep it lubricated.
All right. Well, guys, that's another one. Appreciate the questions there, Tim. For the rest of you watching, get a question together and come get some knowledge next week. Or, what is next week?
What is next
week? Next week. No, Veterans. That's
Veterans Day's Friday.
Yeah, Veterans Day's Friday, and then we got a week, and then we got Thanksgiving. So we'll figure out what the schedule is going to be with all of that. I will, while I was talking about Thanksgiving, we will basically close the normal time on the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and then be closed all week of Thanksgiving, and then open back up the following Tuesday at our normal hours. So.
And today is voting day, so if you want your voice to be heard, go vote.
Yeah. So,
why not?
Yeah. But, so if you got basically a week and a half to come in and get whatever you need if you're going to need something for the week of Thanksgiving. So, but you can always try to message us on the social medias or text, and there might be a chance that somebody will get you taken care of during that week, depending on what's going on. So I don't want to create work for them, and we do want the guys to get some rest, spend time with their families. You're probably not going to have much luck on Thanksgiving Day, but we will at least try to answer you politely. How about that? So, all right, guys, y'all have a great day, and we will catch you on the next